email. If you didn't, it's because I didn't have your email address. And but I wanted to just, somebody who was there at that meeting besides me, because I want to be very careful for you all to know this. We changed things up a little bit, but I want you to know it wasn't me that changed it up. So it was a whole group. So Cassandra was there, Vaughn was there, Bill Cooley was there, so Patty Patterson was there. So any one of you can just share what we talked about in terms of changing up the process a little bit and why we decided to do that. So who wants to do that? Cassandra, you want to do that, or Mom, or something?
So we met Friday to talk about kind of what our plans and process is for moving forward as a community. And we had a plan when we left here last, but we kind of changed that up. And so one of the things we were planning on doing was putting together a community plan, an alternative plan to present to the mayor, the city council, and also to the zoo, because we want this to be a partnership where we're also saying to the city and to the zoo that, you know, this is our community and we want to partner alongside of you. And so initially we said that we were going to get a plan together by this weekend and present it before the council on Tuesday. But it was very ambitious to do and to work through. And so we decided to give ourselves a little bit more time in order to make it a little bit more robust, to get a little bit more community input. And so that's what we decided to do. So we met with Roy Decker's group to help us figure out what a plan will look like from the community's perspective to present before to the mayor. What we know is that the zoo accreditation is in jeopardy, and they need additional funds. They need the $1.4 million for their accreditation. And so we know that the city we've gone before the city to say to them that we are hoping that you would give these resources, but we also know that we're not quite sure where they are in that process. And as a community, we want to be a little bit proactive in helping to secure those funds if it's not in the city. But if it is in the city, but we need business folks from around the community to support the zoo anyways, and our neighborhood. And so we talked about what that would look like. And so Roy has decided to help us put together a plan to present before the council. And with that, there's a financial model too we're going to be looking at. We have some folks that's committed to working a business plan for us to go to different businesses and community folks who will be willing to help us with securing those additional funds. Do we have something else to add to that? I think we gave ourselves some deadlines. So the deadline is on the 19th. We're going to come back together. We're going to be working with Roy Decker. We're going to go back to him with some of the ideas that he has, that he's working on with us on what that area will look like. We want the zoo to stay where it is, but we want the area around the zoo, of course, to be developed and look great and be attractive, so more folks can participate and attend the zoo. And so Roy's plan would do that. It will be more of a development plan. But in that, again, talking about some financial pieces with that going to the, yes.
Can you clarify for me, when we met here on July 29th, I know we talked about the $1.4 million coming from the city, and that appeared to be on track, but that was for operational funding. And Senator John Horn indicated that the state was planning to make an appropriation of $1 million to help the zoo meet its accreditation
Right.
goal. Is that correct?
Right, yes.
Okay.
And so, and we'll give, and I know Sally has talked with the mayor and the legislator, so we'll give them an opportunity to share. But let me go back to the deadline. So we wanted to put together something by the 19th. I believe that's the date, and you all tell me if that's 20th. Present it back to you all, I think, for input. Is that correct? And then we would, y'all help me out with the deadlines. And then take it, present it to the city council? Is
Yes.
that correct?
I think to chime in just real quick, I think the big thing is we're going after accreditation. We want to maintain the accreditation. Accreditation is September 8th. That's one thing to remember.
September 8th, I believe,
September
is
8th.
when
Yes.
you all go before the board.
Yes, so that's the first
accreditation
thing.
board.
I think there was an apprehension about readiness, about being able to submit something to the city council on such a short turnaround. I think Mr. Decker, he could probably speak for himself, had just come back, and so that was some apprehension about that. And so I think that was one of the stumbling blocks about moving. I think that's where citizens want to be informed of why this moved initially from that time. So that was a real quick and fast of it.
Right. But I wanted to give the deadlines, though, for what we're planning on doing going forward, and so we can get you all's input in that. And I don't remember all the dates. But I do remember we would meet back with Roy, and he would help us develop this plan out. We will go and present this plan. I'm not sure which order it is. Talk to the Blue Ribbon Committee. We're going to talk to the board, the zoo board, and then we're also going to talk with the mayor and his administration about our plan and what we're going to be doing. The other piece of this was. I think Beth with the accreditation. Okay, September 9th. 8th, okay, is the date, yeah. And part of the recommendation, too, from our meeting on Friday was that we were going to ask the Blue Ribbon Committee if they would put somebody from West Jackson on the Blue Ribbon Committee.
The Blue Ribbon Committee, the zoo board.
No. Remember, it's two different processes. So the zoo board hired a consultant who also put together a Blue Ribbon Committee to make recommendations back to the board about what they want to have happen.
Who's on the Blue Ribbon Committee?
We know Dwayne O'Neill is the chair of the Blue Ribbon Committee.
And is he on the board too?
No, these are not folks that's on the board.
Dwayne is on the
Oh, he is on the board. Okay, he is on the board. Dwayne O'Neill is on the board. We also know that Primus Wheeler, Socrates Garrett is on there, and Charlene Priester is on the board.
That's the
On the committee.
On the committee.
On the committee. Yes.
And nobody from West Jackson, from this area is on the committee.
Not, no.
That's correct. You know, that's kind of how this whole thing got
Right.
started. Again, I was at a meeting along with Roy, was invited by Beth to meet with her and the consultant named Rick Biddle to talk about the West Jackson plan. And we found out that meeting, this Blue Ribbon Committee had been set up, and I asked who was on it, and we're given the names and realized nobody from West Jackson was on it. So obviously that was a problem. Then originally what we'd been told is that they needed to reach a decision by the end of August. And so those two things really alarmed me. That's when we started, Cassandra and I started mustering the troops. So that was a major issue, that the Blue Ribbon Committee had been set up, and nobody in West Jackson's on it. And so we met, and I think two things is that we've gotten folks' attention so that I think they're getting ready to put somebody from West Jackson on that committee, and also that I understand that it backed off from having to have a plan by the accreditation board meeting. So that's kind of to bring you up to date.
But isn't the main issue that they need that money first for the accreditation?
Yes.
So shouldn't we be trying to, I thought it was $675,000, now y'all saying it's a big.
It's 1.4 million.
Okay, so
That's not the accreditation
that's the
money, that's
biggest
operations
issue, is
money.
the money.
Yeah,
Shouldn't we be trying to get that money first and
Yes,
then
ma'am.
come up with the plan?
Yes, ma'am, and we talked about that at the last meeting, that it's an absolute priority on all of our parts that we got to come up with that funding. Now, Cassandra and June Hardwick and someone else, I think, met with the mayor's staff, and we don't know if the money's there or not. That's the bottom line. It apparently was budgeted under the previous administration, from what I understand, but we're not sure if the money's there. So now, whether that means it was spent or it was over budgeted, we don't know, but there's just some doubt on whether the mayor can come up with it. So we're looking at other ways that we can help come up with that.
I'm sorry, I've got to go back to this stuff because we keep saying the $1.4 million is the money that's needed for accreditation. And I understand that the two sums are very close together. But in the meeting that you all called on July 29th, the people that were in the room made it clear that $1 million was to be appropriated through the state legislature for the purpose of helping the zoo with accreditation, and the $1.4 million from the city was going to be the normal yearly appropriation through the city or request for appropriation to make up that 35% of operating funds that the city supports. So are we now saying that we're changing from the city appropriating $1.4 million to support operations of the zoo to support accreditation? And if that is the case, then what becomes of the money that is necessary, that 35% that the zoo normally gets from the city to operate with?
Beth, can you answer that question?
The reason it's a 1.4 million ask to the city, which is actually 500 and something more than their normal appropriation, is so that we can pay off the debt. That is for the balance sheet, for accreditation, for sustainability. So all that money is to go toward operating and pay off the debt. Whereas the $1 million from the state is to do repairs, fixes, operational water lines, whatever it may be. And we don't have that money yet because the bond commissions haven't met.
Okay, I'm sorry, because that was that's not quite what we heard at the first meeting. Is that true? But thank you for clarifying.
If we come up with this money, can we make some stipulations? Because it's my understanding that the zoo pays a lobbyist. What do they need a lobbyist for?
Well, quite, and Beth is here, so she can talk.
Since the legislature gives them money every year anyway, why would they need a lobbyist? I think that's $30,000 wasted.
Well, I mean, that's
Maybe we can get to something here. It's my understanding that there are 3 vacancies on the zoo board.
Yes.
And 2 of those vacancies exist from West Jackson.
one is
One
from
from
West Jackson.
Maybe y'all can right away say, let's get somebody from West Jackson on that zoo. The next thing is then that this group, that person who we get appointed from West Jackson, that person that ought to have the ability, the authority to appoint somebody in this room, and I got some ideas who they ought to be, to the Blue Ribbon Committee. I think that's one of the things. We're not represented in none of this stuff. And we're not at the ball game in none of this stuff. So whatever we say, we'll never ever get into the fruitations of it because we're not there. We're not on the zoo board. We're not on the Blue Ribbon Committee. Our voices are mute. I think that's the very first thing we ought to do is do that. And another thing. There was a city council person who stated that they voted $1.4 million for the zoo. I'm very concerned that $4 million is not some way for this. Somebody's going to be in some trouble. And I think we ought to really understand this. If the $1.4 million voted to go to that zoo, and that money is not there, Somebody need to explain it to the citizens. And just to say we don't know where it is and without, I don't, I know nobody's going to accept it in today's digital age.
Well, we have a city council person.
Yeah, let me try to, I don't know about the 1.4 that's missing, but let me just tell you how the city, what the mayor proposes as a way to balance that. Because just as Beth said, it's about $500,000 more than is typically asked for. So the alternative to that is that the city will see an opportunity to use about 0.60 mills that will be dedicated to help go towards that balance of what the zoo board and Beth will be asking for, which will roughly give about $690,000, which actually in effect will go to pay off the debt, right? So that's what that'll be allocated for, which will give you that big round number of 1.4. Is that right, Ben? All right, so that's where it's from. There was never 1.4 allocated. Ever.
Straight on.
All right, there was never 1.4 allocated because 1.4 could not have been allocated because there was never a request in a previous budget for 1.4. There was never a request of that, right, Ben? Oh, it never came. It was a request to the administration, but it didn't come to the council, right? So it didn't come to the council for approval. There was a request to the previous administration, but the council never got to vote on the 1.4.
Okay, now with the budget that's in a deficit for 6 years, how do we allow that to happen? Anybody? That's what the money is for, to bail out the deficit and have some reserve to strategically plan to keep the zoo at its current location. We need to quit playing ring around the roses, as Claude says. We're here to save the zoo and figure out how we can save the community at the same time. We can't go back and forth with a budget, where the money is, where it's not. We want the zoo to stay in West Jackson on Capitol Street. I think that's why we all should be here and on one accord. We have a long-range plan. We first off thought that we need a short-term goal to get to the city council. We've been derailed again, and we were told not to go to the city council on this coming Tuesday, which is tomorrow. Put it off so we can get a plan together that only one chance, you get one chance at a first interview, first impression, and that's what we were told. David Duval has come in to say we have a West Jackson master plan, but that's long range. Now we're back to just getting the money. Every time it's something totally different. Every time the community is face to face.
With all due respect, I think we've been pretty consistent in our messaging. I mean, the last meeting, which there weren't a lot of people here, but our last meeting, we emphasized both. Even at the first meeting, Senator Horn stood up and gave a very correct and I think impassioned appeal that if we don't get this funding, all the rest of us move. So I think the message has been pretty, at least the best that I know how to do it, the message has been pretty consistent that we've got a short-term, very short-term issue by September 8th that the funding better be there or definitely not going to get the accreditation. And that we need to help the zoo come up with a plan that will help the zoo with this very real problem. And that is that attendance is down 67% over the last, 37% over the last 6 years, as well as part of the overall development, of West Jackson. That's what I think that's what we've been saying all along. So I don't, some of this is emerging information because we haven't been on the Blue Ribbon Committee, which again is the issue I brought up when we met with Beth and the consultant. So I was charged at last Friday's meeting to contacting Wayne O'Neill and requesting that somebody from West Jackson be on the Blue Ribbon Committee. I've done that. I haven't gotten an answer, yay or nay, but I've been promised he would call me later today, which he didn't, or tomorrow. So we're on that. Because you're right. One of the reasons there may be, it seemed like confusion is because we're getting bits and pieces. But I want to again say, I think we have tried to stay on message. Short-term issue is the funding, or we're going to lose our accreditation, which would be bad. And we got to help the zoo as community people come up with a plan of how the zoo can be better developed.
Excuse me, I am from West Jackson. I'm from the zoo area. Okay, first of all, before you talk about say the zoo, if going to the zoo, you have to make some facade changes. And across from the zoo, there is a building that's been there, I know, at least 15 years.
Yeah.
Okay, first of all, it's scary. How would you expect someone to come raise revenue for the zoo or save the zoo when we got the city councilman here? That across from the zoo, and I know everyone can see it. What's the problem? That building's been there 20 years. Who would want to come to the zoo? You have to psych yourself out to come to the zoo.
That's right.
Okay? So let's look at, there are so many resources in the community, whereas we can start there. Use the resources that we have, link to link. We have several churches, about 20, between here and downtown. Let's link together. Ask those churches, they're not here tonight. I just happened to come by my office and got a message that they were having a meeting here. So we can start there. First, start cleaning up before you ask someone to try to save something.
Yeah.
And I'm sure a lot of people would help.
We've talked about.
Let's not talk. What I'm saying, let's not talk. We have city councilmen here.
We got to put together the plan, though. And so
We understand your issue
Right, it is our
is the gateway.
Yeah.
We understand that, and the surrounding area. That
Well, but see, what I'm trying to say is, how long must you talk? You need an action plan. You need to start cleaning up. And that's the first thing. And then, once you have a clean house, surely everybody wants to come.
that's what we're trying to talk about, how to get that done.
Yeah,
But
that's
I'm from West Jackson. I've been in West Jackson. I go there. I work there every day.
So do I.
And so what you're saying is, okay, that's what we've been talking about. And I call the police. I call the police all the time and tell them like, hey, look, these people are prostituting in this area. If I can see it, if I can see this building that's across from it, so tear it down.
So part of the issue you're raising is part of what we're talking about. So it is one, the priority is this accreditation part. And we got to get that. And so we got to have those resources. But the other part is what we're saying is engaging the community to even more take an interest in one, coming to the zoo, but also developing that area so that it can be more attractive.
So our next meeting should have every church that is in the area. Because they're benefiting from the area in terms of non-tax paying. So then, therefore, they should at least within 1 mile of where they are, north, south, east, and west.
Well, we have a committee. We have different committees. We need you to join some of these
well,
committees.
Well, I know this is my first.
Okay, so we're glad you're here. We want to plug you in. So there's a couple of committees.
My neighbors are not here.
Tell them. Tell them about it. Tell them about it. So that they can get plugged in. We're with you. We're not saying anything different. We're with you on that. We just need you to get plugged into a committee and help us work it. So we're here to develop these action plans out. So you're on the right page with us. So we're fine. We're frustrated just as well. So we solve it.
Where is the 1 million from the state? That's what I'm asking for. We keep skipping past that 1 million from the state.
So I didn't hear that the state had $1 million.
That's what Senator Horn
Okay,
July
well,
29th.
It was allocated. It's in the bond deal that was passed. So.
That on the smart back.
Second.
That on the smart back.
No. Oh yeah. But anyway, we did meet with the mayor. I don't know if Mr. Tillman is here.
So the $1 million is there, Representative
Mr.
Clark.
Tillman said that he had
Senator,
a prior
that's
meeting.
okay.
I spoke to him about an hour ago. He said he had 2 other meetings and he couldn't do it.
Well, Mr. Tillman, myself, and Councilman Priestley, I believe, met with the mayor and his staff regarding the, because I was asking 1.6, because I was thinking it was $625,000 plus $1 million. The mayor, and I won't speak for the mayor, I just speak for basically what we talked about. It's not 1.6 there. Going back to what Councilman Yarborough said, I think it's just the same thing. It never had gone to the council for that, so it's not there. I think the thing is now, I think it was $900 and some thousand, I believe it was, that was there. So that, I think what need to, I can't say what need to happen, but if the accreditation is the issue, and if the $1.4 million, then I think we need to really focus on, some quality time need to be spent with the council and the mayor to try to, the mayor did commit that he was willing to do whatever he could to make sure that, that the zoo stayed where it was, that the money is made available, but he had to do some other things. So I think that some quality time needs to be spent with the mayor and with the council to make sure that's there. And going beyond that, I think that we got 3 committees, we got 3 groups. We got the Blue Ribbon Commission, we got the board, and then the community. At some point in time, all groups need to come together so we can be singing from the same sheet of music. Because if all of this may be for naught if we come up with the money and we don't know what's in the heart and the mind of the zoo board and the Blue Ribbon Commission. And I'm not for giving money out of West Jackson to support something that's moving out of West Jackson. And we need to hear firmly from those individuals that's really in a position to make those decisions. And I think that if the mayor, if the city is going to allocate money, if the state is going to allocate money, then there needs to be some representation from the mayor. Certainly should have some representation on the Blue Ribbon Commission, and talking with him. There's a lot of concerns that he had. So I don't know if anybody has even from a courtesy standpoint, sat down to give him the first-hand information. I'm talking about from the board. I'm talking about from the Blue Ribbon Committee, because we can go in, but I don't represent the board. I don't represent the Blue Ribbon Committee, and I can't speak for them. So I just think that the 3 entities need to come together.
I'm with you. As Cassandra just mentioned that.
Yeah, so Dwayne O'Neill, chair of the Blue Ribbon Committee, has met with the mayor's staff and has told them basically what I said to them, what we know the issue is. So they are aware of it. And then, like you said, the mayor is committed to, when we met with him, he is committed to keeping it right here. And he's also committed to using his influence, he probably told you that as well, his influence with other partners to make up what is missing in that budget. So there is a commitment there to do
but
that.
We have to go beyond commitment, because now it's our time.
Ms. Shirley.
I was just listening to what he was saying, and I was just wondering, why are there meetings with the mayor without Beth's presence? If you're calling out figures and numbers, and she's the director of the zoo. She's, of all people, need to be a part of whatever meetings you're having with the mayor and the council. It should not be done without her.
Well, the community went, and so Beth also is going to have her meeting as well. And Dwayne O'Neill is the board chair, or is a chair, but is on the board of the zoo. So there has been some conversation from the zoo board to the mayor, and there's, from what I understand now, there's a meeting that's being arranged with Beth and her staff.
But even still, with the community, I don't think the community members should go to the city without a zoo member.
But the community is saying that, the community is strictly saying that The zoo board has had no representation from this area of the community. A blue ribbon committee or commission was established. No one asked us about that. Meetings have been held. A consultant was hired. Funds are being spent, and consultants cost a lot of money. We weren't asked about that. There were a great many things that the community has not been involved in. Now, Ms. Bett was aware of what the people that were in this room on July 29th intended to do. They did not do any of those things or take any action or have any meeting without full disclosure, which is something that frankly the community has not had.
Right.
And the community is asking not only for full disclosure, but to be allowed full participation in the process that we have not been allowed to participate in. We understand that there are needs. We understand that there are infrastructure issues, and none of us are challenging that. But what we're saying as a community is, let us be a part. If the community surrounding the zoo is what is being pointed to as the major part of the problem, then perhaps you should allow the community surrounding the zoo to be a part of the solution. I still would like to know exactly when this blue ribbon committee was established, and we just found out about it. Fortunately, when Phil Reed and Cassandra found out about it, and they called an emergency meeting and gathered the troops, so to speak, and that is how we all initially came to the room July 29th. Had it not been for them having their ear to the ground, the zoo would have been somewhere out down Lakeland Drive or wherever else, and we still would not have known. So, thank you for that.
And as for my take on that, the night that we met with Senator Horn, I talked to Senator Horn after the meeting. I think that if we're going to go into a meeting and ask for additional money from the state, then we need to make sure that the money from the city is coming. And that was the position that we took. And that was the reason that I went along with Councilman Tillman to make sure that whatever monies that had been allocated from the city was made available. With the money from the state, we all agree and knew that money has been allocated. And if there can be additional dollars, I think it'd be. We decided that night that it'd be counterproductive for us to go and request additional resources when there's not buy-in from the local unit of government. So that was the reason we met with the mayor.
And from what I'm hearing, we do have buy-in from the local government.
Right.
Is that correct?
Charlotte Bond and then Mr. Metcalf.
Yeah. I was just thinking about how are we going to prevent this from happening again? I mean, here we are, tax-paying citizens, and we've got a zoo that has been in the red for all these years. We know how blighted the area is. We're hoping that we can help and do something, but we've got leaders that are supposed to be doing this. And then when you have these underhanded tactics, and then someone who's on the board is now chairman of the Blue Ribbon Commission, and they care nothing about what we think. Not one thing about what the citizens, the taxpayers of Jackson think. And they want to pick up and move from West Jackson and continue to have West Jackson and South Jackson blighted.
I'd like an assurance that if the city is going to be appropriating funding, that it is the zoo board's dedicated intention to remain here. Otherwise, as a citizen, I would be advocating for them to say, hey, the city has other things that it can use $1.4 million for. If you want to move anyway,
but look at it like this. If they have this money allocated to them, then something is not going right as to where it's going, what is not being done right. And I've said this, if you're on a board, why hire a consultant to do what you can do, and that's get on that computer, go online, research the best zoos in the United States or in the world, find out what they're doing to get the people attracted to it and to come in. Let them do a little homework rather than just sitting on the board. Let them do a little bit, get on your computer, check it out. Don't hire a consultant when you don't even have money to become accredited.
Let's give Vaughn and then Mr. McInnes.
The reason why I wanted to say something real quick, we need to start moving from talk to action. I think that's what we initially had this meeting for. There are individuals here from the Main Street Association. I invited him, Mr. Bob Wilson, that could help us in terms of fixing that blight near Claiborne Street. There's a Masonic Lodge over there. I know exactly where you're talking about.
The city councilman, that's who we need, that's who.
Well, I understand. I'm talking about the actual building. I'm looking at the building.
That's what
Man, listening to him.
I understand
Please,
what you're saying.
the building is right there. It's a Masonic Lodge. My Boy Scout troop used to be over there, so I know exactly the building you're talking about over there. However, we want to fix the problem. We have to start singing from the same hymn book as Senator Norwood said. And I think that the community start to come together to come up with a plan. I think that's what the West Jackson plan is. The second thing that we can do is get a commitment from the zoo. I'm a member of the zoo. I hope everyone will go out and buy a $25 membership for the zoo. But to start making a commitment that we will have representation on the zoo board as well as the Blue Ribbon Committee. Those are some tangible things that we can start right now to do. And the third thing that we can start doing is start to talk about how we can make the zoo viable and sustainable. The zoo is losing money for a reason. We have to clean up the area around it, but it takes effort from everyone, not just the community identifying it, not just the elected officials from appropriating money, and not just from a commission to decide where things happen. And we also have to look at the accreditation. Those are three things that we have to do tangibly, and we can move on today. So when we have these big feelings, we can put it toward real tangible action.
Okay, Mr. McInnes.
We have Yes, sir. Yes, sir. You said this is what we want. Can we have elections? We asked the city council person in the last year, put a special committee together. You see, under the autonomy of the city to assess, deal with, renovate Capitol Street with power. Many cities pass orders. What they want to do with the land inside the city. We asked the city council to do that. I don't know if they did it. The other thing is, I need to be educated, you see. Who appropriate money? Not the mayor. The mayor does not appropriate money. Who processes the money? Their motions. We've been talking tough, but they're motions. You make motions. Do you see, are you ready? All in favor? It's not rocket science. Now, if somebody is planning on an allocation for the zoo, somebody needs to put it in motion from the city council. Somebody needs to second that motion. Then they need to take a vote and direct folks to release money. You know, folks, I mean, really, it's not. Now, what we have done is actually allowed it to be. We talked in circles. Half of the conversation out here, we ain't never had, or we didn't have it that way. We did not. And we know we did not. Now, it has to be an initiative from the city in the beginning to make it an official thing that we're going to do something. It has to be an official statement from the city that we're going to do something. City council starts these kinds of things, and they can make motion. If the mayor be told folks, they can even override the mayor. You see, so we got city folks, they know what to do with this. They're talking us to death.
So can we?
Just
short, and then we'll
I'll
do
be
the
very
action.
quick.
Yeah.
I just wanted to make a point. I am a board member, and we have not been sitting back twiddling our thumbs.
Board member
of the zoo.
Oh, okay.
I am a board member, and for years we have been researching other great zoos out there. So it's not that we're just sitting back and waiting on a consultant to tell us what to do. We have a new splash pad. That's something that other zoos have. You know, those are things that we've researched. We've improved the tiger exhibit. Those are things that we have done. If people don't come to the zoo, you just don't generate the revenue. And so a lot of the things that are required to beautify the area around the zoo to have signs coming from I-55, from 220, from I-20, to notify people that's just traveling through the area. To even know that there's a zoo here requires money. So just wanted to put it out there. We're not just sitting back, chilling and waiting for a consultant to tell us what to do. We have been doing some research.
Okay, so let's use the money for the consultant and the lobbyist to put us a sign on I-55 and I-20 about the zoo. If you're wasting money, you don't need a lobbyist and you don't need a consultant. That's money wasted.
I think
you need a good marketing person.
That's a little bit out of our jurisdiction to have anything to say about that. But I think that we
find out who owns those buildings, those properties coming up to the zoo.
But that's a part of what we're going to get to.
Does Mr. Tillman need to be here?
He does.
Okay.
But we're going to get to that. That's all a part of the grander plan. So I think we got some steps we got.
The ordinance already in place.
Yes.
It just needs to be enforced.
We're with you. We're with you. Like I've already said, we're with you. We're on the same page. But let's get some priority on what we need to tackle first. Yes,
Thank you. I'd like to thank all of you for coming. I think all of you want about the same thing.
Yeah.
But I think I'm saying the same thing that a number of you have been saying is that we need to start moving. Where do we go from here? Where are we? Now we know what the city's money is, where we need to try to find out. We need to get that. We know that the state has allocated the money. I don't think the bonds have been allocated. So we got to find out where that is so we can see how soon we can get those. Was that the last thing you heard? And that's what we have to do about that. But I just want to make sure that we all keep in mind that we do not want to move the zoo out of West Jackson. I just want to quickly say that Graceland was having the same kind of problem. Some of you might have seen it today. It was on national news. But they decided they were talking about moving Graceland. But when they looked at how much it would cost to move Graceland, they decided it would by no means by the wise thing to do. I talked with someone today, and they told me it would cost about $1.7 million per acre to move the zoo. Now, I don't know how many acres we have, but I know you can multiply by the number of acres we have and see how much money you'd have to spend to do that. So what I'd like us to do, go on and see where we are, and what are the 1, 2, 3, 4 things we need to get busy doing.
Well, that's on your agenda, and we haven't got to a lot of it, because I know people need a chance to vent and express their frustrations. I'm frustrated. But I think that we've had a series of meetings. To your point, we haven't done anything without Beth's knowledge, so we're not undermining Beth. We're here to support Beth and her leadership. But what we talked about that we wanted to do tonight, because we've got several things going on at once. So, we've got the West Jackson Master Plan process that's been going on now for 3 or 4 months. Roy Decker's here to talk a little bit about that and how that process can help come up with a plan for the zoo, and it's very much a grassroots-based process. And then we said we were going to talk about the timetable that we're looking at, having a plan ready to present to the executive committee of the zoo. We've been invited to come to the executive committee of the zoo to present a plan on the 20th, and then present it to the mayor and whoever he decides needs to hear it, and then come back and present it to this group. So we're trying to deal with the crisis of the accreditation at the same time. Really begin to put together some plan. We've been talking with other groups. My good friend and Pastor Bishop Crudup is here. He also happens to be executive director of chair of the board. I'm sorry, thank you, chair of the board of Jackson Redevelopment Authority. That I think can bring some things to the table. So I think we've got a critical mass of folks that want to solve this problem. And for me, I'm just believing. And sometimes I can be naive, I know, but I'm just believing everybody intentions are good, and how do we work together to become partners? That's where we really want to get to. Roy, would you want to talk a little bit? So can we move on?
I just want to add a couple things in terms of our goals. We are working on West Jackson Master Plan. Part of that is actually doing an inventory of all the dilapidated buildings in the whole area, a study area, So we can locate them, we can articulate where they are, what condition they are, and what status they are in relation to code compliance. So to help the case to take some of those buildings down. And those two buildings across from the zoo are really pretty terrible and a big part of the blight of the entrance and experience for the zoo. We also are looking at the Capitol Street corridor, the whole experience, because it's a major artery through the neighborhood and it contributes to the quality of life for all of you in terms of how everyone, visitors and family, come and go from the neighborhood. There's a lot of work yet to do. We're at the beginning phases of assessing the neighborhood, the buildings, the condition, all of that. We are coming on board to help with the question about the zoo, and what we're trying to do is identify an asset, which is the land, Livingston Park and the acreage around there, and help the zoo and the community see if there's ways in which that land can be an asset to both, to increase the attendance at the zoo, to maybe possibly generate some revenue, long-term revenue for the zoo, take the pressure off the city, in terms of longer-term strategy. So, as Phil said, as Cassandra said, these things are all in motion as we're speaking. And it was a little quick to have all that studied and done tonight, so I do apologize for that. But we are working on it. We're trying to really kind of give a... Worst thing to do is go to city council or the mayor and say, we got this idea, and then they ask 7 questions and you can't answer 6 of them, We want to be sure that we can help the zoo. The zoo board really is in the driver's seat here. They're trying their best to think about reprogramming and repurposing and making a dynamic zoo for the city of Jackson. And I think Phil and I and all of us that have been involved in the meetings have felt that. There's a stress about money and accreditation that's critical. But the underlying reality is the zoo is a spectacular and important asset to West Jackson. Jackson State, the zoo, these are big assets to the reason you all live here and the reason you call it home. And I think what we have to do is do everything we can to help the board, help the community come together, and we can, as planners, we can maybe give a little bit of legs to the story to help that and help Beth in this accreditation process. So, in a conversation like this, there's all sorts of variables that we all don't know. What we're going to try and do is lay them out in a good text and a good plan that can kind of deal with the facts and the pressures and the issues to help the zoo stay and actually become a great zoo for the city of Jackson. So there's a lot of challenges, but I think you all are doing the right thing. This is a grassroots effort, not just as a master plan. Every good community has an active grassroots interest in their well-being.
And certainly the gateway, and I call it the gateway, 220 from 220 downtown, down Capitol, from Interstate 20 down Ellis, is an important part of what we have to do. There are examples of, we were meeting with Eric Streisner, who's chairman of the board. I was asked to meet with him shortly before this meeting, and there's a zoo in Boston that's in a similar situation as ours. It's miles. One of the problems we got were miles from the interstate. But there's a zoo in Boston the same way, and they built it up. So there's certainly those models of how to do that. I know the board's been looking at it. Beth certainly has. And so again, we want to have a cooperative relationship, and I think we have that. So if we could move on, how we're going to, we're planning to have a plan by next week, by next Tuesday at the latest. So we're working on that. We've got a subcommittee that's working on the funding, and we need to part of what we wanted to try to do tonight was be able to spend a few minutes sort of huddling in our subgroups. So we got a group that's trying to deal with the short-term financial issue. So we would welcome you on that. Senator Norwood, Representative Hardin, or anybody else who wants to work with us on that.
But I was saying that I think our problem could be rushed along a little bit better if we would have involved the major actors in the community, such as those churches. And I think you help us do that. Sure, but I'm just saying, but they're not here tonight, and before we start maybe committees, they may be slighted if
Well, they can just join. I think we're
they were
further
not
along in the-
invited because they didn't know anything about it.
Some of them have been invited, so I think this is evolving. So if you can help us get them to the table, that would be great. We need your help to help them.
But I think you need to, like early Greek, the major churches on the fairway.
You have relationships with them to help us get them, because we got to be accountable to each other here.
We can try to Charles Simmons. I'm sure he knows everyone in the community. They just let him know.
All right. So I agree with you. So I think Phil is right on saying what he just said. But I want to go back to Mr. McInnes because he said this 2 weeks ago, and I think we need to figure out what we want to do with that. He said put a motion on the floor at the city council. No, city council is meeting tomorrow, so y'all. So it's open to the public. We need to ask Tillman to get on that agenda. So I think that needs to happen tomorrow. So if you could have...
Let me make a comment about
Yes,
that.
okay.
Although that is a process of city government, with all due respect, Mr. Chairman, it is a budget matter, and the council will pass a budget that includes the money. There will be a motion that will be made that I'll lead out of my committee, which is the finance committee. There will be a second. There will be, I'm sure, 4 hands that will vote that will cover that, and that'll happen in a proposed budget for FY 13-14. But that will not happen tomorrow. That won't happen tomorrow. It won't happen because it's not. We're still in this budget process and budget cycle. But what it will happen within the next month or so, and you'll see that happen where that money will go. Now there may be an opportunity for us to look for emergency funds or emergency funding, but we've got to find it. But it won't happen as a result of, ma'am.
The issue is the accreditation hearing is September 8th.
Well, what I'm saying is it won't
some
happen.
kind of...
Right, I got you. What I'm saying is it won't happen tomorrow.
Okay.
Because we won't be able to say we've got $1 million, but where will we get it from? What I do know is that we had a budget meeting today. The mayor made it clear that his intent was to present before the council an opportunity to take care of the city's obligation to the zoo. That's going to happen without a shadow of a doubt. And that's what was presented during a budget meeting today as it relates to 0.60 mills that will be allocated for this effort.
All righty. Well, that's exciting.
Eric Sherwood is here, Beth is here. Is anybody from the Blue Ribbon Commission here? Okay, no. The zoo operates on a non-profit status. The city does not operate. Okay? The money is not there. We're dealing with a deficit, been there for how many years? Okay. Now, this is my question. The decision is the board and the Blue Ribbon Committee. That's what we know now. We can pull the money, we can find it, I can write a check if I had it. Does that matter to the board and the Blue Ribbon Committee? Is it a done deal? Just answer the question.
No.
Because just like Sears left here, the community wants to know if this is a done deal.
All I can tell you is, and I was invited to a meeting just shortly before this meeting. The chairman of the board was there, Mr. Eric Strassner, and Beth and Rick Biddle, the consultant. And what we were told over and over and over again, no decision has been made. They are actually beginning to think, I don't know if beginning's the right word, but they are thinking similar to we are, that let's develop that whole piece of property. So all I can tell you, and again, I'm giving people benefit of the doubt. All I can say is that I've been told over and over again, no decision's been made. Dwayne O'Neill even called God he said that I can tell you before God that what I'm telling you is the truth. No decision's been made. So that's all I can say. Now, I don't think any decision's been made. I'm giving them the benefit of the doubt. I think it's very, very much still open. I think they see a crisis. I think we see a crisis. Something has to be done, and that's what we've said from the beginning. So, but I think that we, for whatever reason, we got on this at the right time. And as the consultant said today, and Mr. Strasner, is that the interest at the zoo, people talking about the zoo had been like at this level. And now it's at this level. And so people are talking now about the zoo. That's a good thing. Now, if we can harness that, and I think we will, by getting somebody on the Blue Ribbon Commission, and I believe they're going to do that, and fill those 3 vacant board slots from wards 2, 5, and 6, or 3, 5, and 6. 2, 5, and 6. Then I think that's a key part. So all I can say is people are telling me over and over and over and promising that even before God, that no decision has been made. So that's all I can tell you.
Phil,
go ahead.
When can Dwayne or somebody else who will actually know come to this group and say that no decision's been made? Or in Dwayne's absence, can Beth tell us that no decision about relocation of the zoo has been made? I think for me, that'll make me feel a whole lot better. Just instead of just hearing stuff second and third hand. I mean, if she ought to know. So why can't we hear from her?
Has a decision been made, or give us your assessment? Good point.
I don't have to stand up. There has been over 5 or 6 options of what can the zoo do to correct the downward spiral of attendance, and what can we do to keep accreditation. It's been discussed all over the board of different options. The Blue Ribbon Committee is not in agreement of what should happen. Our board working group, with Aaron is on, is not in agreement with what should happen. And every week, we flesh out and find new and better ideas. Just today, we talked about great park ideas we could do to build the zoo out, and at the same vein, look for some way to help the corridor. We're very aware of the fact that our attendance is hurting because of the corridor area to get into the zoo. So there is no definite decision. Thank goodness we did get information back from the Accreditation Commission, my AZA Accreditation Commission, that we don't have to come with an option as we originally thought. We just have to show that we're talking about what can happen. So I just need to show support from City Council, support from business people, support from the community, simple letters even from neighborhood associations that everyone is wanting the zoo to survive and be viable. So no decision has been made by anybody. All I'm thinking about, and all my zoo board is thinking about right now, is got to keep that accreditation. If I lose that accreditation, it's going to change the zoo that you even know today, as much as it's already struggling. So I'll say it again, no decision's been made by anybody. Everything's being looked at. It drifts a bit, obviously, but we had a great conversation today about some wonderful things we can do, and that accreditation is number one focus and only focus for the zoo board and myself.
Okay. But just as a follow-up to that, again, and just for information, just to educate us about what's going on, can you talk about some of the options you've been considering? I mean, you mentioned there were 4 or 5. Can you at least share with us what are some of the things you're considering?
To flesh out the conversations that we've had, and that's even for zoo board committees, not just Blue Ribbon, but for all of us. We looked at everything from we're losing 35% attendance. Maybe this is a losing deal. The zoo needs to close. Maybe we can't turn it around. We looked at maybe we need to shrink the zoo down to match the attendance. We're about 120,000 visitation. This zoo should be 230,000. No reason isn't. That's the benchmark comparison for our metro area. So maybe we have to shrink the zoo and just deal with the fact that we can only get 100,000 people to visit us. We looked at the other option of maybe we need to invest even more top of the line, great zoo exhibits. Right now, all we've been doing is repairing and getting kind of up to the 20th century. There are really wonderful, great things out there in the zoo community. It's not only just animal exhibits, but many of the health park things that we mentioned earlier. So maybe invest and grow. And yes, the option of maybe it needs to be somewhere else. The only guidelines they stuck to is Jackson will always have a zoo. It'll be a Jackson Zoo. And the other thing was, we're not going to just say we're going to make a change and not care what happens behind. I've spent 8 years of my life investing what that zoo has become now. And it's turning around, it's turning the corner, and I would like to continue on with the plan too. I just need to know feasibility-wise what's going to work, what's going to be best. And I think working with the master planning group with West Jackson is going to be key as well. But I can't say how this is all going to work out. Once we have accreditation, I'm going to think positive now, then we'll continue on looking at options. We'll also continue on having neighborhood meetings. We'll look at feasibilities. We'll look at master planning. We have a year, 2 years to make these kinds of decisions. If I can hang on to accreditation, we can have a good year at the zoo operationally while we continue these conversations. So that's somewhat of the process. That's somewhat things have been talked about. I don't have any one group that cares about one way more than the other. It's a big mixture of things. And there is no decision. I have to get that zoo accredited. That's the important thing.
Tell us again exactly what we have to do. Hold on to accreditation.
Fortunately, most of the structural problems that we were written up for under a list of concerns, we are able to address and are taken care of right now. We're renovating 3 animal exhibits right now. In fact, there actually was a bulldozer moving today. It's been kind of quiet. We have changes that we must make to our contact yard. Again, we're able to do that. We have funds from 2 years ago, state bond funding, that we're using for these activities. Structurally, we can pull it off. Sustainability and balance sheets and where's the money going to come from to address this debt that you've been carrying every year because projections of attendance doesn't hit, that's my hard conversation. And I think by downsizing the zoo a bit, tightening up on those great exhibits, and showing that the city cares, the community cares, and we're going to pay off debt, suddenly we look much better on a balance sheet because now we're still 60% of it still has to come in the door and help run the zoo. We still need city support year to year, but we're not carrying a gross debt on top of us, which with any business, even if you are a nonprofit, it's hard.
Beth, are you also saying that when you go for them that I just heard you say downsizing? Is that, are you going to?
Actually, I should call it right sizing. The budget in the past has been about $2.5 million. What we're going to do, we're setting our budget for 13-14 based on this past year's attendance, that 120,000. So we'll be at 2.2 million for our new budget we're putting together. Basically, we're not filling some empty positions that we've had for over a year. We're changing some full-time to part-time. And some of the very, very old exhibits, we're just going to close those down, tear them down, and move those animals into the newer areas that we're developing. So the zoo may, instead of being 34 acres, it may be 28 acres come next spring. But that's all in the idea that we're going to match our attendance to last year instead of trying to set these budgets in the past where we've done like 3-year averages.
And just the last thing, and I promise I'll be quiet. It seems like there's this perception that you guys are operating in secrecy or you have some hidden agenda and all that. So could you kind of address that? And also, just for me, I mean, I worked at the zoo for 2 summers. It was probably one of the best jobs I ever had, being around the people, that came to the zoo, as well as just being around the animals. So I think there are a lot of people out there that are really passionate about the institution, probably don't know about all of its struggles. So I think if you guys did a better job just educating people about what your plight is and asking for people's help, I think that'll go a long way. And also, again, I also think you got to be, whether it's intentional or not, you really need to be more transparent about what's going on and what you're trying to do. Because again, once you put something out there and don't put something out there, leave people to their own devices to assume stuff, I mean, it's tough to unring bells like that. So, and that's just my issue. It just sounds like, just tell us what's going on. Tell us what your struggles are. Tell us how we can help. Because again, I know there are a lot of people out there that's really, really passionate about the institution and want to help.
I love to see too. And I think we're working really hard because we just started the process. We are going to open it up more. Phil is working with Dwayne. I'm going to let my zoo board member step in.
I just wanted to say something because I think people are forgetting. How long ago was it when we had to move the elephants? How many of you remember the elephants leaving? So they didn't leave because they're looking for a new scenery. They left because of the decline in attendance. Okay? That was in the media then. How long ago was that?
3 years.
3 years ago. So, I mean, it's nothing secret. But what I'm saying is, it's been in the news, it's been in the paper, that the it's been a decline since 2007 in attendance. And we ended up...
I have to say this real quick. We have to start looking at ways to market the zoo to other folks. We have to look at marketing to the citizens. We have to look at those kind of things too, instead of, you should know because the elephants are moving. I'm a member of the zoo, and I think the citizens are too. So that's an issue, yes. There's an issue with membership. I think that's the biggest thing the zoo is losing, the membership. No, it doesn't fully fund the zoo, but it helps. And I don't want us to get into this, I guess, issue of going back and forth. We have to start moving towards solutions because I think that's what everyone's here for. And I hope we can get towards that instead of, I guess, beating up on one person or having emotional outbursts without coming together with solutions.
If I could, I want to try to pull us back. I think that, to Eric's point, the fact that the board would set up a blue ribbon committee to talk about the zoo and nobody from West Jackson being on it was at best a tremendous oversight. And I think the board has to take responsibility for that. That's why the appearance of secrecy. It may not have been intentional, but it sure looked intentional. Now, I think we've gotten beyond that, but that was how this whole thing came up, is that there was no responsibility, nobody from West Jackson on this committee that was going to make a decision. So that's it. And so I think that we've got beyond that. I think there's a lot of goodwill now, so we're trying to work this out, but that's the fact. Bishop Cruz had his hand up for quite some time, so I want to give him a chance to weigh in, and then we'll...
Yeah, I want to say, I think this is one for me, because I think nothing changes when people get mad as hell. And so the reality is the zoo has been bleeding a long time. And most of us have been totally unaware of it. And it's only when we feel threatened that then we get upset enough, in terms of it, to do something about it. I would hope, and so let's don't fight one another. I think the senator said, well, let's come together around this and let's move forward, because, come on, the city is not without assets in terms of this, okay? I'm the chair of the Redevelopment Authority, and, the fact is that, and I'm going to have a conversation with the mayor about this. And by the way, I want to say that the zoo has been in our radar, okay? I mean, we've talked about it and looked at it because we've become a little bit more aware over the last year and some of the options we had. Councilman, I would hope that maybe one of the things that would come out of this is that you and the other council folks, along with the mayor, is that you put this as an agenda item for us. We're your redevelopment authority, okay? And if the community really wants this, if we're upset about this, and when we stay actively involved, and I want to push that fact that we stay actively involved, around this, and we push our elected officials around this, and committee folk, that are part of that, then there's a lot of things that we can do. Because I also want to say this: there are things that are happening in the area that also will affect this. And I think that if, we work on this diligently, a lot of this we might be able to bring together. And so, even though it's very crucial for Beth and the board and those folks to get, money to get their accreditation dealt with immediately, I want to say, too, that is, once that's done, there's a lot that we can do to change things. Okay? Any place in this city or surrounding community that's doing well now is doing well because it's been developed or being redeveloped. The zoo and that corridor there can be redeveloped. And we've got the assets to be able to do it. The issue is, do we have the will to do it?
I think we do. We want to try to, I'm going to take step in. We have this Bob Wilson that was invited by Von Anderson. Remember last meeting or meeting before we talked about Main Street USA and as a possible partner, and so Von invited Mr. Wilson to come, and I've asked Mr. Wilson just to briefly give us talk to us a little bit about how Main Street may be able to help us and do what we want to do. Because Bishop Cruz, I believe, is right. We got a short-term crisis, but after that, the real work begins.
Thank you, Bill. Well, just give you a real quick explanation of what Main Street is. Main Street is an economic development program based in historic preservation. And we help communities and urban neighborhoods revitalize. So, this is, in Mississippi, we are a program of Mississippi Development Authority because our program generates jobs and businesses and economic impact. We're not a part of state agency, but we have a contract or a grant with Mississippi Development Authority to operate Main Street within Mississippi. On a national level, we are a program of the National Main Street Center, which used to be under the National Trust for Historic Preservation. So there are about 2,000 Main Street communities throughout the country. There's 51 in Mississippi right now, and it is one of the hottest economic development tools going. We basically, in this particular area here, what we're talking about is an urban neighborhood. We deal with small communities, we deal with larger communities, and then within metropolitan areas, we deal with urban neighborhoods that have a commercial component and a residential component. It's just like what was mentioned before. It's very grassroots, it's an incremental program, it's self-help. So everybody within a particular neighborhood is involved, whether it's residents, whether it's youth, business owners, property owners. Certainly there's always the public sector that you need to get involved in that. But getting everybody to the table and really looking at what this particular community can do for itself is one big, huge step to help the image of that particular area and the entryways that come into that particular area, and can really support additional attendance and marketing for, in this particular case, the zoo, but other businesses that are either located in the area right now, that we may be able to provide opportunities for them to expand into other goods and services that we know would be supported in that particular area, and also to provide those opportunities where the businesses that are there don't take advantage of those opportunities. We can recruit other businesses to come in there or foster entrepreneurs to take those opportunities as well. So, we work along the course organization. We're going to work with these task teams and the boards and whatnot that are put together in the program. But we have a design element, which is really the visual image of that particular community, not just the architecture, but the landscaping, the streetscaping, the wayfinding, the signage, everything that sort of gives you the image of that particular area. We also work in one of the 4 points is promotion, which I've heard talk about that tonight. And that's your market analysis. You know, what businesses will work there, and how do you attract them? What kind of incentives can you put together for your existing businesses to expand, but to attract other businesses as well? And of course, the marketing plan. You know, you're not only just marketing for attendance to the zoo, you're marketing for more residents in that particular area. You're marketing for more investment into that particular area. So it's sort of a multi-pronged marketing campaign, if you will. The bottom line is what we call economic restructuring. It's sort of business development, but it's reconstructing a vibrant economy in an urban neighborhood or in a community that used to be there. You know, and how do you go about doing that? And that's really sort of, after you've got your other bases taken care of, you know, your design issues, your image issues, some of the other things that your marketing programs, you know, then this comes together and really sort of takes everything that you've got there to support the existing businesses, support the existing neighborhoods and the programs that they have or want to be involved in, and then let that expand into other things. And then finally recruit businesses and investment residents to come into this particular area and really make it vibrant. That's what we do. You know, we don't have a lot of funding ourselves, but we have relationships with people that do have funding. And that would be MDA and USDA and the state legislature and a lot of things out there that a lot of that money is project-based. So we help that particular group really sort of determine what it is that you want to be, and then we're going to help you get there. So we have an awful lot of success in Mississippi and a lot of success nationwide. Yes, sir.
Sir, I have a question. My name is Herbert Lee, and I have a bonds over here on West Capitol at 2311. I've been there for probably about 20 years. And I recall several years back, I would say in the neighborhood of 5 or 6 years back, I really got excited because there was word in the community that the zoo had received $600,000 plus some more monies to really upgrade and do some enhancements. And I thought it was going to attract some more, opportunities. And I figured since that's the only zoo we have over in the capital city here, that it was gonna, be something of interest that would become vibrant. But I didn't really see any progress, and I'm wondering, at this point, I never was contacted. Someone called me today, probably about 12, and told me to come here to this meeting, and I was a little late, but I'm glad I got the opportunity to come. But nevertheless, what about accountability? Accountability. Who's going to be accountable for these projects and making sure, because I'm not sure if that money actually was earmarked, that was allegedly set aside, that was out in the community years ago. Like I said, I may not be exact, but it was within the last 5 to 7 years that this was something that people were looking forward to in the community, and it never did come to fruition. There's also a lot of, dilapidated buildings in the area right near the zoo. Who would be accountable, and where has the board been on trying to either get the city to tear those properties down or get somebody to invest in those? And that's some of the things that I'm concerned about, if somebody could address that. Thank you.
Yeah, I understand, and I think probably a couple of different issues that you raised there. I know there's been decline in that area. I moved to Jackson in 1973, and that particular area was vibrant at that point. There's been a lot of decline there over the period of time, and not just in that area, and not just in Jackson, but all over as far as the city centers. So it's something that you can get to. It might not look the same as it did before, but it can still be vibrant. Now, the information that you're talking to about the money's going into the zoo and all that, I don't really know anything about that. I think the zoo is a huge partner in revitalizing that neighborhood for sure. And so, you've got to get the people together and real quickly, accountability. You know, there's got to be a plan in place. You know, what are we going to do and how are we going to do it? And then, you know, you're going to take those recommendations that are prioritized by this entity of what they want to do and what they want to do first. And you make a work plan. You know, and that's budget, that's, you know, any of these particular recommendations or projects or anything else, and you develop a work plan with an implementation guideline. And you have responsibilities within that plan along the way of who's going to do what, how much is it going to cost, and how are we going to pay for it. And this is the money we have, and this is how it's going to support that particular project. So there's lots of accountability when you're figuring, you know, when we work to implement a Main Street program. And like I say, I don't know what's happened in the past. I'm sure that probably has implication in what would happen going forward. But this is a starting place. So that's what we're really talking about. Yes, ma'am.
Yes, I'm an annual Federal Zoo ticket holder. It's kind of offending. It's offensive that the conversation that your speech, that same speech was what the developers gave after Katrina in New Orleans. All kinds of attractive things would happen because a certain segment of the community was displaced. And our community is very fragmented. And in this economy, for such an important decision to be made about moving something like the zoo, it's unfair because there are a lot of other elements. Is it the economy? And who are the people that are going to support the zoo once it's moved? Who are those? Is this going to be one specific group? Are you saying that the West Jackson community can no longer support the zoo because of what? They've been displaced, or the economy is because of the economy? What's the problem? And by moving it to somewhere else means that there's someone else who has more money and who will visit more frequently than the West Jackson people.
Let me just step in. Mr. Wilson is with Main Street USA, so he hasn't been involved with any of the decisions at the zoo. So
now he needs to know what I'm thinking.
I hear what you're saying, and again, all I can say is I can't give all the answers that you may want. Where that $600,000, $800,000 went, I know the issues of the past. They're important issues, but we gotta move forward. We gotta believe that we can move forward in spite of what's been done in the past. And my invitation would be to come and be involved in the planning process going forward to make sure those things, best we can, that they don't happen again.
Yeah, well, you know, I'm sorry, and I didn't mean to, I understand, sir. You're with the Economic Development Group. My question wasn't directed towards you about the past incidences that have occurred, but I still would like to know from you, sir, what kind of accountability would we have, because we had somebody that was supposed to be doing these things, obviously, in the past, and I really didn't see any results, even though I was looking forward to it.
Again, I can't, I'm not with the zoo either. I'm a community resident in the Voice of Calvary Ministry. But again, I would say, be involved in the planning process going forward. That's all. That's the only answer I can give. If you want to know where specific monies went, I guess you'll have to talk to Beth, because we can't address that, frankly.
Thanks for the invitation. I didn't get one previously, but I got one now.
All right. So you're on board. Well, let me just say, too, please make sure you signed up in the back so I can have your name and email address, because if you didn't, you're not going to be included. So please do that.
Let's thank God for
I just want to say, as far as the takeaway of going forward, we still the money for the accreditation. I think we need to draw a circle around that, because that's the first step to save the zoo. And then I think that even if I don't have to be on the board, all I need to know is when they meet, and once we know we can become active participants, And I think to show our support through the city, okay, if this, I think it just expressed to our council persons, not just Mr. Tillman, but the entire council, the importance of this. Not just to, all elected officials, period. Board of Supervisors have a role to play. I think that if we start doing that right away, but the $1.6 million or $1.4 million, whatever it is that we need, is clear. It's not there right now. The mayor is going to work with the zoo and the community to try to come forward with that. But I think that we need to be proactive and also be working to see what type of strategies or marketing plans that we can put together to try to come up with the money, because if the city does not have the money, then it just does not have it. What are we going to do? And I think that if we can put 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 things here with, then I think that our time would be well spent.
We've been trying to get to that ever since we started. It's hard to get y'all to move forward. But we got several committees, and one of them is the short-range funding committee that we were hoping could meet briefly tonight. We'd love you to meet with us and talk about some options. Bishop Crudup's here. Kimberly Hilliard is on that committee. But it is going to take some real information from the city about, is the money there or not? If not,
So let me let me just ask this question. Since our group has dwindled a little bit, can we go through that now? Just the financing, where we can identify some additional funding from. Can we just do that? Are we in agreement to do that? Yeah. Okay. All right. All right. Keisha had a question. Keisha's from the City Constituent Services.
I guess the only thing that I want to say is that even though if the city makes a commitment to do whatever, we need to keep in mind that will not be until the funding year 13-14, which is October 1. So the accreditation visit is September 8th. So we need to figure out what type of conversation needs to be had with the accreditation group to ensure them that this is what the city's commitment is, but the commitment is not going to be for the funding year until the funding year 2013-2014, which is October 1. So that needs to, and I think Councilman Yarborough was also trying to indicate that as well, because we're in budget right now for the funding year.
That's what I thought. I thought I heard from that the accreditation board is, and we know we got some time here, even if the council puts it in the budget and the money's there's a time period before that's able to be distributed. I'm understanding that the accreditation board just wants to see that support. So if that has happened and the council has done what they need to do, and there's a legitimate effort that you could present to the accreditation, you've had your support letters from the community, from the businesses, etc., that this is sufficient for September 8th. Is that what I'm hearing?
As far as the funding, of course, we're understanding the budget for the city will need to be approved until September 15th, and then it doesn't start until October 1. So all I hope to have when I go in front of the commission on the 8th is the mayor's letterhead, director of finance letterhead, just the fact that it is in there. We hope it stays in there, whatever way they need to, because obviously until it's voted on, it's not a true promise. But if they can see that it has been discussed and more likely has gotten out of some of the work sessions, that would be adequate. They may even say, all right, well, let's see what happens to you September 15th, which I don't know. Sometimes you just don't know about the commission. But they just need to know it's seriously considered and seriously being looked at.
And just one last tale on that is she talked about other support, and that's something that we can do. We don't have to wait on the city for it. She talked about support from the community, letters of support from organizations that are in the city, from businesses, even financial support, maybe even from businesses. I mean, I think that's something we can do.
Move that this committee send a letter of support to the zoo director.
Second.
That this group send a letter from our neighborhood representing our neighborhood associations. Yeah.
And I think we need to get every other organization. We need it from the churches, we need it from the sororities, we need it from the fraternities, we need businesses, every business in the city, and it doesn't need to be a light letter. It needs to be, this is what we plan to do. It doesn't need to say, well, we like the zoo and we're going to be here. We need to say specifically some things that we plan on supporting, and that needs to be very, very detailed.
And I think going on what Brother Clark said, within this group you have probably about 10, 12 entities. You got one letter, but then all of the other entities within this group that's meeting here tonight would also go ahead and put letters out. But I think going before the city council, I think we need to come up with the exact amount of money that we're asking the administration to give. Because if it's my understanding, it was what was budgeted was not what is needed, and and it probably I don't know if y'all knew that, but that from my understanding the other day, what I went in was 1.4. No, it's not 1.4 that was budgeted. So I think we don't want to go on what is budgeted. We need to go on what is needed, and we present if it's 1.4. Then our letter to the administration should be, we're requesting consideration in the budget for the 1.4, and if city council is tomorrow, then we need to articulate that to all of the council person. Now, and if before the city's fiscal year, will we need the $625,000 $650,000? We need that prior to, or prior to that what the city is going to allocate in the budget is basically operation costs that they plan on giving you anyway. But the additional dollars, would that be needed before? Because if that's needed before, then what we probably need to ask the administration is look for $625,000 in current funds that may not be obligated, that they could award to this effort. If that's there, I would think.
And just the way our agreement is with the city now, the yearly support money comes twice a year. It comes at the end of October and the 1st of January. That's the quarters. And not wanting to speak for finance department or whatever, my assumption would be it would be half and half again of the 1.4. If they have funding available right out of the box of that first quarter and they want to pay the debt off with more than half, that's fine too. It's probably more of a cash flow question for the city as far as which way we work. But those funds usually come twice a year, end of October, 1st of January.
Okay. I mean, I don't mean to prolong this, but my concern.
Pardon me?
Did you get your allocation in January?
October 1.
I thought you said October. It's the end of October and then the end of January. You said you get it twice a year.
Oh, yes, from last year.
You got it in January?
Yes.
And the 1.4 million?
No, we wrote a request letter to the administration in April for 1.4. Last year's budget, it was $921,000.
But that's my point. Now we're going from 929. Whatever the budget for this year is 900 or something. So we got additional $600,000. If that money is needed prior to the city's fiscal year, then I don't think it would be anywhere aligned to this, we're asking the city if you have X amount of dollars in current year funding that could be made available to this effort, because that's separate and apart from what the city had budgeted anyway. And that money is not budgeted.
Yeah, I think that's a key question is we need to know exactly what's needed, how much, by when. And because all I've ever heard is the 1.4. So that's the figure that was stamped in my mind, and maybe I'm a slow learner, but I haven't heard any other figures. So we just, to Senator Norwood's point, is we just need to know exactly, as much as you can, exactly what you need by when, so we can make the request. And then we don't have to go back and say, oops, we really needed 1.8.
She stated that the request was 1.4 million, but 900 million was the request for last fiscal.
900,000.
She's 900,000.
Yeah.
I thought she was very clear on what has been requested.
Okay, so tell us again then. So again, maybe I'm a slow learner.
But I think the key point is that when the $900,000 is the standard budget request.
Yeah.
$600 to some $1,000 is
to take care of
So I'm saying that. And my thing, what I'm saying is that if you can separate the two and ask the city for the $600 and ask for that out of this year's funding, and still next year you're still looking to get to $900,000, and that can. And you don't have to wait on the approval of the budget. What you're asking now is for special consideration, like emergency funds.
Instead of the way she did it, because what she did is just requested a 1.4 million and one request. And he's saying separate her 900,000, make that request, but also ask for the additional 500.
So, clear it up. Say it.
Well, it's hard. 1.4 is the total amount for a 12-month period.
Okay.
Our assumption at the time, much like it's always been in the past, is we would get half of it in October and half of it in January. We would pay half the note off in October and half the note off in January. However, if there is situations where there's leftover funds in the current city budget to pay off the note now, certainly we would look at that. Our note is running about $675,000. That would make our annual operating request less if that note is gone. I'm really not going to second guess the director of finance or what they're looking at.
Okay.
The reason that money has gone up is to get rid of that note. How I get rid of the note? I want to do it the most easiest way, and the less interest I pay, the better.
So will $1.4 million from the 2013-14 budget do the trick?
Yes.
Okay. Is everybody clear on that?
No matter when you receive it, even if it's October.
Even if it's October.
Okay, so I think we got that. So again, we need to work with the mayor in his office and
To get a letter from them saying that the intent is.
If there's support we can get from other quarters, I'm sure that wouldn't be refused as well. So if there are other resources out there, I think we should try to come up with alternative financing as well.
Kim had her hand up, and then let's figure out what these additional resources are.
Good evening. I'm somewhat confused because my goal last week was to have a plan to present to this body today, to present to the City Council tomorrow. I think we're wasting a lot of time having an internal conversation with only the mayor and the City Council can answer certain questions about what is available. We're saying what we need, but the city has a long laundry list of needs citywide. And so at some point, if they're discussing the budget, we need to make haste and really make our requests known quickly. For me, it is an issue of the zoo getting the money that they need. immediately, but I also would like to know, like Senator Norwood just said, we're at the end of a fiscal year. Are we about to de-obligate funds, HUD or home funds, that we could use on Capitol Street? Because this is a sustainability issue that the zoo is going to also have to answer external conditions, regardless to what we do with the 1.4 internally. So it's like we're having a very small conversation. Now, I was told that you guys wanted to wait 2 weeks. I'm very confused about that. 1 week? Anything can happen. They're making heavy decisions. And just like we're standing here with the zoo, South Jackson have issues, Northeast Jackson, Northwest Jackson, everyone are making their pleas. And so we don't know where we're going to fall in, because we've been hearing back and forth that the money is not there. So I think we have to have a conversation and a clear commitment from the city what they can give us, whether it's this fiscal year or next fiscal year. And we cannot leave out the conversation of Capitol Street. Furthermore, I think you said that we lack representation on the Blue Ribbon Commission, but it is to my understanding that the zoo board, don't have representation for Ward 5. Those things could happen immediately, because if they're meeting and we don't have a voice at the table, something is wrong. Those two requests should be made immediately today.
And I will share, in the meeting with the mayor, he did make a commitment, and Mr. Tillman was there to go ahead and fill those vacancies on the board. And he also made a commitment to begin conversation with the work to be done on Capitol Street. And so I think, the commitment there, that's not money, but I think, at least the conversation has so I think that was part of the conversation we had. But I do agree that I think it's time for all of us to sit down at the table together, so we won't be back and forth. And when Beth goes tomorrow to do a presentation, do you go to City Council tomorrow to do?
Not tomorrow, no.
I wanted to present something tomorrow to start the dialogue, because officially we haven't started the dialogue.
And I think
we've made sideline requests, but we haven't officially.
Yeah, and I think we've met with Councilman Yarborough here tonight, Councilman Tillman, and Councilman Priestley was in the meeting. Councilman Stamps had a representative here, but I agree. I think that you've got 3 minutes tomorrow, and
who do we want to represent?
Well, I'm just saying.
I think we need to put names out there. Who we want to represent us.
If you get 3 minutes.